Captain Marcus Reed adjusted his uniform collar as he gazed out at the stars from the bridge of the UES Defiant. The sleek, diplomatic vessel hummed quietly through space, its destination the border of Zentari territory. Beside him, Lieutenant Zara Quinn monitored the tactical displays with practiced efficiency, her auburn hair catching the light from the console screens. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Zara reported, her fingers dancing across the controls. "It's from the Zentari fleet. There. Demanding we stop and prepare to be boarded." Marcus smiled, that easy grin that had gotten him through countless negotiations. "Well, that's friendly. Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of High Counselor Nexer Thorn. The Zentari scaled. Skin gleamed metallic blue under the harsh lighting of his command bridge, his forearms crossed in a gesture of supreme authority. Behind him, dozens of warriors in ceremonial armor stood at attention. "Alien vessel," Thorn's voice boomed through the speakers. "You have violated Zentari space. Prepare to surrender your ship and submit to interrogation or face the consequences." Marcus glanced at Zara, who raised an eyebrow. He could see the slight smile tugging at the corner of her lips. They'd studied the Zentari protocols extensively, and this was exactly what they'd expected. "Greetings, High Counselor Thorn," Marcus replied cheerfully. "I'm Captain Marcus Reed of the United Earth Stellar Navy. We're here for the diplomatic meeting your government scheduled." "Thanks for the warm welcome." Thorn's expression darkened. "There will be no meeting until you demonstrate proper submission to Zentari authority. You will transfer all your weapons and technology to our ships as tribute." "Ah, well, that's a bit of a problem," Marcus said, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "You see, we don't really do the whole tribute thing. How about this instead? Why don't you join us for dinner? Our chef makes an excellent beef Wellington." The Zentari bridge fell silent. Thorn's face cycled through several shades of blue, settling on a deep purple that Marcus's cultural briefings had identified as either rage or confusion. You dare to mock the Zentari Empire," Thorn sputtered. "Mock? Oh no, I'm completely serious about the Wellington. Ambassador Voss has been raving about it all week." Marcus gestured to the elegant woman who stepped into view. "Ambassador." Kira Voss, Earth's top diplomat, gave a polite wave. "High Counselor," Voss said smoothly. "We understand this is unconventional, but we believe breaking bread together is far more civilized than threats and posturing. We're genuinely excited to learn about your culture." Zara leaned closer to Marcus, her voice barely audible. "Sir, I'm reading massive weapon signatures from their fleet. It could vaporize us in seconds." "I know," Marcus whispered back, his breath warm against her ear. Trust me, the brief contact sent an unexpected thrill through Zara. She'd served with Marcus for 3 years, but lately, these moments of closeness had been affecting her more than she cared to admit. On screen, Thorn was conferring with his officers in rapid-clicking Zentari. Finally, he turned back to the camera. "Your behavior is unprecedented," he said slowly. "Are you not afraid of our weapons? Do you not comprehend that we could destroy you without effort?" Marcus's grin widened. "We comprehend it perfectly. But here's the thing about humans, Counselor. We tend to find the most dangerous situations oddly amusing. It's probably why we survived long enough to make it to the stars." He gestured to Zara, who pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. Images of humans surfing tsunamis, climbing impossible mountains, and laughing in the face of natural disasters filled the space between the ships. "This is how we spend our free time," Marcus continued casually. "Zara here once jumped out of a perfectly good spacecraft just for fun. Right, Lieutenant?" Zara felt her cheeks warm. "Orbital skydiving is recreational, sir." "Recreational," Marcus repeated for Thorn's benefit. She plummeted through the atmosphere at terminal velocity because it was entertaining. The Zentari officers were staring at the display in what could only be described as horror. Thorn's forearms had gone limp at his sides. You leap from spacecraft, for pleasure." Among other things, Voss interjected smoothly. "We also have activities called volcano surfing and extreme cave diving. Humans have always found creative ways to dance with death. Marcus caught Zara's eye and winked. She had to suppress a laugh, which came out as a small snort that somehow made her even more endearing to him. So Marcus continued about that dinner invitation. Our cultural attach assures me that sharing meals is a universal sign of friendship. We've prepared a feast that represents the best of human cuisine. Thorn looked like he was having an existential crisis. You invite us to dine. After we threaten to destroy you? Well, sure. Threats are just conversation starters, right? Besides, you haven't actually tried to destroy us yet, which we appreciate. It shows good manners. The silence stretched for a full minute. Finally, Thorn spoke. Your species confuses us. We will. Consider your invitation, but know this. Humans, if this is some elaborate trap, the Zentari will show no mercy. Fair enough, Marcus replied. But I think you'll find the only thing you'll be trapped by is how delicious our food is. As the transmission ended, Zara shook her head in amazement. Sir, do you think that actually worked? Marcus turned to her, his eyes twinkling with mischief and something deeper. Zara, sometimes the best way to disarm someone is to be so completely unpredictable that they don't know what to do with you. Is that your philosophy for everything? She asked, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. Maybe, he said softly. What do you think? Before she could answer, Ambassador Voss cleared her throat. Captain, Lieutenant, we should prepare. For our guests, something tells me this is going to be a very interesting evening. As the crew bustled to prepare for the most unusual diplomatic dinner in human history, Marcus and Zara found themselves working in perfect synchronization, their hands occasionally brushing as they coordinated the ship's defenses and hospitality protocols. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or firepower, it was their ability to find joy and connection in the most impossible circumstances. Dr. Elena Cross smoothed her lab coat as she entered the converted cargo bay that now served as a cultural exchange center. The space buzzed with activity as human crew members arranged displays of Earth's entertainment and achievements. Holographic screens showed everything from comedy shows to extreme sports, while tables groaned under the weight of human delicacies. Are you sure about this? Professor Jocks Winters asked, adjusting his glasses nervously. The cultural attach had been second-guessing their approach ever since the Zentari had agreed to this unprecedented meeting. Jocks, relax, Elena said, her warm smile easing his tension. The best way to understand any species is to see what makes them laugh, what they fear, and what they celebrate. We're just being ourselves. The bay doors hissed open, and a delegation of Zentari warriors entered, led by General Kale Drakthor. The imposing figure stood nearly 8 feet tall, his bronze scales gleaming under the artificial lighting. His 4 arms were positioned in what their briefings had identified as a cautious but respectful stance. Behind him walked Seneveltar, the Zentari intelligence officer. Her scales were a deeper shade of blue than the others, and her movements carried a grace that suggested both deadly precision and careful observation. Welcome aboard the Defiant, Elena said, stepping forward with her hands open in the universal gesture of peace. I'm Dr. Elena Cross, and this is Professor Winters. We're honored to share our culture with you.
Owls.
Golden eyes studied her carefully. Dr. Cross, your reputation precedes you. We have heard you are a scientist who studies dangerous creatures, among other things, Elena replied with a laugh. Though I prefer to think of them as misunderstood rather than dangerous, rather like how we might seem to you. The comment drew a sharp look from Sina, but Elena continued cheerfully. Please, make yourselves comfortable. We've prepared a small presentation about human entertainment. The Zentari delegation arranged themselves in a semicircle as Jocks activated the first holographic display. Images of humans engaged in various activities filled the air, people laughing at comedy shows, children playing in parks, families gathering for celebrations. This is how humans relax, Jocks explained. We find humor in everyday situations, and we gather to share stories and laughter. The display shifted to show a human comedian performing stand-up, making jokes about the absurdities of modern life. The human audience roared with laughter, but the Zentari delegation sat in stunned silence. They mock their own suffering? Kale asked, his voice carrying a note of confusion. Not mock, Elena corrected gently. We transform it. Humans have a saying, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. We choose laughter. The next sequence showed extreme sports, humans wingsuit flying, free climbing impossible cliff faces, and racing. Through dangerous terrain, the Centauri watched in growing horror as humans threw themselves into situations that would terrify most sentient beings. All while whooping with joy. This is madness, Senna whispered, her scales shifting to a pale silver. They seek death for ... entertainment. We seek life, Elena replied. Moving closer to Kale, she found herself drawn to the general's intensity. The way his eyes never left the display, even as his posture radiated barely controlled tension. We push ourselves to the limit because that's where we feel most alive. Jocks advanced to the next segment, showing human military history. The Centauri leaned forward as images of ancient battles gave way to modern warfare, tanks rolling across battlefields, aircraft carriers launching fighters, and finally, the mushroom clouds of nuclear weapons. These are your recreational activities? Kale asked, his voice tight. Oh no, Elena said quickly. Those are our disagreements. We tend to be ... when we settle disputes among ourselves. The display showed the devastation of various human conflicts, then shifted to show the rebuilding efforts. Cities rising from rubble, former enemies working together, art and music flourishing in the aftermath of destruction. You destroy your own cities, ... then rebuild them. Cena's voice carried a note of disbelief. We're remarkably good at both, Jocks admitted. We prefer the rebuilding part these days. The final sequence showed human space exploration, the first moon landing, Mars colonies, and the construction of interstellar vessels. The Centauri watched in silence as humans celebrated each dangerous milestone with parties and parades. You launched yourselves into the void, Kale said slowly, before you knew if you could survive. That's generally how we do things, Elena replied. We figured it out as we went along. Presentation ended, and the cargo bay fell silent. The Centauri delegation exchanged glances, communicating in their rapid, clicking language. Finally, Kale spoke. Your species ... you celebrate danger, you laugh at death, you destroy and create with equal enthusiasm. It's one way to put it. Elena agreed. And you came here, Cena added, to our territory, knowing we could destroy you, and you offered us dinner? Well, yes, Jock said, pushing his glasses up nervously. Food is how humans show friendship. We thought you might be hungry. Kale's expression was unreadable as he studied Elena. Dr. Cross, in your professional opinion, what kind of species seeks out danger for pleasure? Lena felt her heart rate increase under his intense gaze. There was something magnetic about the general's presence, a combination of strength and intelligence that she found unexpectedly attractive. The kind that refuses to let fear control their lives, she said softly. The kind that believes that universe is meant to be explored, not feared. Orsina interjected. The kind that has lost all sense of self-preservation. Maybe both, Elena admitted with a smile. But we're still here, aren't we? We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own worst impulses. We've turned a hostile planet into a garden and reached for the stars, despite everything trying to stop us. Kale stepped closer, his massive frame somehow not seeming threatening. You are either the bravest species we have ever encountered or the most foolish. Why can't we be both? Lena asked, tilting her head up to meet his gaze. Bravery and foolishness often look the same from the outside. The general's golden eyes studied her face, and Elena felt a strange flutter in her chest. Despite their differences, despite the fact that he belonged to a species that had threatened to destroy her ship, she found herself genuinely intrigued by this alien warrior. Perhaps, Kale said quietly, we should experience this human food. You speak of, to better understand your ... unique perspective. I think that's an excellent idea, Elena replied, her smile widening. Though I should warn you, our chef has a tendency to make things spicier than most species can handle. We are Centauri, Kale said, his own expression softening slightly. We do not fear your food. Famous last words, Jocks muttered, but Elena was too focused on the unexpected warmth in Kale's voice to pay attention. As they prepared to move to the dining area, Sina approached Alina. Dr. Cross, I must ask, do all humans approach danger with such ... enthusiasm?
Yes.
Replied, though some of us are better at hiding our fear than others. And do you hide your fear? Lena glanced at Kale, who was examining a holographic display of human art with intense concentration. Not usually. Fear is just another emotion. To experience, like excitement, or curiosity, or attraction to dangerous alien generals? Sina asked with what might have been amusement. Alina felt her cheeks warm. Is it that obvious? To someone trained in observation? Yes. The question is whether you will act on it. I suppose, Alina said, watching Kale turn to smile at something Jox was explaining. That depends on whether he's as interested in understanding humans as I am in understanding Zentari. Dr. Cross, Senna said, her voice carrying a note of respect. I believe you may be the most dangerous human we have encountered yet. Why is that? Because you make us want to lower our guard. As they moved toward the dining area, Alina found herself walking beside Kale, her conversation flowing easily, despite the vast differences between their species. For the first time since first contact, she began to wonder if the real danger wasn't in the space between their ships, but in the growing connection between two beings who should have been enemies. Commander Jake Phoenix adjusted his helmet as he stood in the shuttle bay, checking his equipment one final time. Beside him, its Captain Vera Storm ran through her pre-flight diagnostics with the focused intensity that had first caught his attention. During their academy days, her short black hair was pulled back efficiently, but a few rebellious strands had escaped to frame her face. Are you sure this is a good idea? Vera asked, not looking up from her tablet. Showing the Zentari our recreational activities might send the wrong message. Jake grinned, that easy confidence that had gotten him through countless impossible missions. Vera, when has showing off ever been the wrong message when you're trying to impress someone? When that someone has enough firepower to turn us into space dust, she replied, but there was fondness in her voice. The shuttle bay doors opened to admit their Zentari observers. War Chief Gorvac strode in first, his scarlet scales marking him as one of the elite berserker class. Behind him, Nyla Starweaver moved with the precise grace of a scientist, her silver scales shimmering under the artificial lights. Honored guests, Jake said, spreading his arms wide in welcome. Today, we're going to show you some of our favorite ways to spend a weekend. Gorvac's forearms crossed in what their cultural briefings had identified as skepticism. We have heard humans engage in activities that would be considered suicide by any rational species. Suicide is such a negative word, Vera interjected. Finally looking up from her preparations, we prefer aggressive life affirmation. Nyla's head tilted in that peculiar Zentari gesture of curiosity. Please explain this concept. Well, Jake said, activating a holographic display. Let's start with something simple. Vera, show them your orbital dive certification. Vera's tablet displayed her credentials, thousands of jumps from various altitudes, including several from low orbit. The statistics were accompanied by video footage of her plummeting through atmosphere, her laughter audible over the rush of wind. You leap from perfectly functional spacecraft, Gorvac said slowly, and this brings you joy? Describable. Joy, Vera confirmed, the feeling of free fall, the rush of air, the moment when you deploy your chute and suddenly you're flying instead of falling. There's nothing like it, but the risk of death, makes it exciting, Jake finished. Let me show you something we did last shore leave. The display shifted to show Jake and Vera Volcano surfing on Kepler 44b, riding improvised boards down slopes of flowing lava while laughing uproariously. The Zentari watched in stunned silence as the two humans navigated between lava flows. With casual expertise, the planetary surface temperature was over 800 degrees Celsius, Nyla said faintly. Yeah, that's why we wore the environmental suits, Vera replied. Safety first. Safety first. Gorvac's voice rose to what might have been a roar. Oh. You surfed on molten rock and call that safety? We wore helmets, Jake pointed out reasonably. The next sequence showed their deep-sea exploration of Earth's Mariana Trench, where they'd wrestled with bioluminescent predators twice their size, again while laughing with pure delight. These creatures could have consumed you, Nyla observed. Could have, Vera agreed, but they didn't. Turns out most predators are just misunderstood. You approach them with respect and confidence, and they usually leave you alone, usually Gorvak asked. Well, there was that incident with the European ice sharks, Jake said, and Vera snorted with laughter. That wasn't my fault, she protested. How was I supposed to know they were territorial? The giant teeth weren't a clue? I thought they were just enthusiastic. The Zentari delegation exchanged glances, their scales shifting through various shades of bewilderment. Perhaps, Nyla said carefully, you could demonstrate something. Less immediately lethal? Sure, Jake said. Vera, want to show them the zero-G obstacle course? Absolutely. They moved to the ship's training deck, where a complex three-dimensional maze of barriers, spinning objects, and moving platforms filled the space. Jake and Vera suited up in minimal safety gear, just enough to prevent broken bones. The objective, Vera explained, is to navigate from one end to the other in the shortest time possible. We've been competing for years. What's your record? Nyla asked. 2 minutes 37 seconds, Jake replied.
Ow.
But Vera beat it last month. 2 minutes, 15 seconds, Vera said with satisfaction, and I wasn't even trying that hard. You always say that, Jake laughed. Want to make it interesting? What did you have in mind? Loser buys drinks for the winner, and our guests when we reach the next starport. Vera's eyes lit up with competitive fire. You're on. They launched themselves into the maze simultaneously, their bodies moving. With fluid grace through the complex obstacles, the Zentari watched in fascination as the two humans spun, dove, and ricocheted off surfaces with perfect timing. Their movements so synchronized, it was almost like a dance. Jake grabbed a spinning beam and used its momentum to slingshot himself forward, but Vera anticipated the move and took a more direct route through a narrow gap that required her to flatten herself impossibly thin. Impossible, Gorvak breathed. Their bones should be breaking. Humans are surprisingly flexible, Nyla observed, her scientific mind clearly engaged, and their reflexes are remarkably fast. The two humans were neck and neck as they approached the final obstacle, a series of platforms that moved in unpredictable patterns. Jake took the aggressive approach, launching himself at maximum speed and trusting his reflexes to adjust. Vera chose precision, calculating angles and timing with mathematical accuracy. They hit the finish line simultaneously, laughing and breathless. I call it a tie, Jake panted. Fair enough, Vera agreed, her face flushed with exertion and joy. Drinks are on both of us. As they floated in the zero-G chamber, Jake found himself studying Vera's face. The way her eyes sparkled with adrenaline and happiness. They'd been friends for years, partners in countless adventures. But lately, he'd been noticing things about her that went beyond friendship. You know, he said quietly, we make a pretty good team. The best, she agreed, her voice equally soft. For a moment they floated there, the competitive energy transforming into something warmer and more intimate. Excuse me, Nyla interrupted, but I must ask, do all humans engage in such activities? Most of us, Vera replied, reluctantly breaking eye contact with Jake. We're explorers by nature. We like to see what's possible, even when it's dangerous. Especially when it's dangerous, Jake said. Safe things are boring. Gorvak's scarlet scales had shifted to a deep purple. Your species. You actively seek situations that could result in death? We seek situations that make us feel alive? Vera corrected. There's a difference. And if you die? Jake shrugged. Then we die doing something amazing. Better than dying in bed of old age, wondering what we missed. Besides, Vera added, reaching out to steady herself against Jake's shoulder, we're pretty good at not dying. Lots of practice. As they prepared to return to normal gravity, Nyla approached them. Commander Phoenix, Captain Storm, I must ask, are you not afraid of anything? Jake and Vera exchanged glances, and something passed between them, an understanding. That went deeper than words. We're afraid of lots of things, Jake admitted, but fear isn't a reason not to do something. It's just another feeling to experience. Like love? Nyla asked with surprising perception. Vera's cheeks colored slightly, among other things. Then perhaps Gorvak said slowly, "Humans are not mad. Perhaps you are simply more alive than the rest of us." "Maybe," Jake said, his eyes never leaving Vera's face. "Or maybe we've just learned that the best things in life are worth taking risks for." As they prepared to rejoin the diplomatic discussions, Jake caught Vera's hand in his. "Want to grab dinner later? Just the two of us?" "I thought you'd never ask," she replied, squeezing his fingers gently. Behind them, the Zentari delegation watched with growing understanding. These humans weren't insane, they were simply willing to risk everything for the things that mattered most. Admiral Rachel Blackwood stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the massive Zentari dreadnought approach. The Supreme Overlord's personal flagship dwarfed even her battlecruiser, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Zara Quinn reported from her station, "the Overlord's ship is hailing us. He's not happy about our presence in Zentari space." Captain Marcus Reed moved to stand beside Rachel, his casual confidence a stark contrast to the tension on the bridge. Over the past few days, his relationship with Zara had deepened, and the way they worked together now carried an intimacy that hadn't been there before. "Put him through," Rachel said calmly. The view screen flickered to life, revealing Supreme Overlord Vex Corthel in all his terrifying glory. The ancient Zentari ruler's black scales seemed to absorb light, and his forearms ended in claws that could rend steel. His throne room was a monument to conquest, decorated with the weapons of 1,000 defeated enemies. "So," Corthal's voice rumbled like an avalanche, "these are the mad humans who have been corrupting my people with their insanity." "Supreme Overlord," Rachel replied with a slight nod, "I'm Admiral Blackwood. We're honored by your presence." "Honored." Corthal leaned forward, his red eyes blazing. "You invade our territory, fill my warriors' minds with your deranged philosophy, and claim to be honored." "We prefer the term cultural exchange," Marcus interjected cheerfully. "Your people have been wonderful hosts." Corthal's attention shifted to Marcus, studying him with the intensity of a predator evaluating prey. "You are the one who offered my High Counselor food instead of tribute, as guilty as charged, though in my defense the Wellington was exceptional." "You mock me." "Not at all," Rachel said, stepping forward. "Your Overlord, may I suggest we discuss this over tea? I find most misunderstandings can be resolved with proper conversation." The bridge of Corthal's ship fell silent. "Ambassador." Kira Voss appeared on screen beside Rachel, carrying an ornate tea service with the casual grace of someone diffusing a galactic incident. "You offer me tea when I could obliterate your pathetic fleet?" "With a thought." "Oh yes," Rachel replied reasonably. "Good tea is surprisingly effective at preventing obliteration. Earl Grey, if you're curious." Corthal stared at them for a long moment, his scales shifting through various shades of purple and red. You are not afraid, should we be?" Zara asked, her fingers steady on her console despite the massive firepower aimed at them. "I am the Supreme Overlord of the Zentar Empire. I have conquered 1,000 worlds. Entire species flee at the mention of my name." "That's very impressive," Rachel said, pouring tea into delicate china cups. "Would you like to hear about our weekend hobbies?" Before Corthal could respond, the view screen split to show a compilation of human recreational activities. The Overlord watched in growing horror as humans base jumped from orbital platforms, wrestled with creatures that could bite them in half, and casually discussed nuclear weapons over coffee. "This is your idea of relaxation?" Corthal asked faintly. "Some of it," Voss replied, "though we also enjoy quieter pursuits. Reading, music, gardening. Yes, though we do tend to grow rather dangerous plants. Marcus here has a lovely collection of carnivorous specimens from Proxima Centauri. They're quite friendly once you get to know them," Marcus added. The display shifted to show human military history, not the recreational violence they'd shown before, but the real thing. Massive wars, nuclear exchanges, entire continents transformed into battlefields. "This," Rachel said quietly, "is what happens when humans actually get angry." The Zentari delegation watched in stunned silence as Earth's bloodiest conflicts played out on screen. Cities reduced to ash, millions dead, civilizations rising and falling in the span of decades. But you said these were disagreements among yourselves, Korthal said slowly. They were, Rachel confirmed. We settled our differences and moved on. That's what we do. You destroyed your own homeworld? Parts of it, Zara said matter-of-factly. We got better. The display showed the aftermath, humans rebuilding with stubborn determination, turning wastelands into gardens, creating art from the ashes of war. Your overlord, Rachel continued. You've been operating under a misunderstanding. You think we're insane because we laugh at danger and treat potential annihilation as a dinner invitation? Maybe not. No, Rachel said, her voice taking. On a harder edge, we're apex predators who choose to be civilized. There's a difference. She gestured and the display changed to show human military capabilities, fleets of warships that made the Zentari vessels look primitive, weapons that could shatter star systems, and defensive technologies that bordered on incomprehensible. We've been polite, Rachel continued, because we prefer friendship to conquest. But make no mistake, we came to the stars because our own planet became too small for our ambitions. Korthal's throne room had gone dead silent. The Supreme Overlord stared at the display, his red eyes wide with something that might have been fear. You could have destroyed our fleet at any time, he said slowly. Of course, Rachel replied, returning to her tea. But that would have been rude. You hadn't actually attacked us yet. Marcus stepped forward, his easy smile taking on a sharper edge. Your overlord. We've studied your empire extensively. You rule through fear and intimidation, crushing anyone who challenges your authority, as is proper. For you, perhaps, but humans don't respond well to intimidation. We tend to take it as a challenge. Zara pulled up tactical displays showing human fleet positions. Ships that had appeared to be merchant vessels revealed themselves as heavily armed warships. What had seemed like a small diplomatic flotilla was actually a battle group capable of reducing the Zentari fleet to scrap metal. We didn't come here to conquer you, Rachel said calmly. We came here because we thought you might make interesting friends. But if you insist on treating this as a military engagement, she let the threat hang in the air, unfinished but unmistakable. Korthal's scales had shifted to a pale silver, the Zentari equivalent of absolute terror. All of this was a test, not a test, Voss corrected gently. An opportunity. We wanted to see if the feared Zentari Empire was as impressive as the stories suggested. And you are, Marcus said. But impressive doesn't mean we're afraid of you. We respect strength, but we don't bow to it. Korthal leaned back in his throne, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. I have never encountered a species like yours. If you have, Rachel agreed. We're an unusual combination of traits, pack hunters who prefer cooperation, warriors who choose peace, predators who protect the weak, and if I ordered my fleet to attack, then you'd discover why every species that's tried to conquer humanity is now either extinct or our ally, Zara said quietly. We're very good at making friends, your overlord. But we're even better at making our enemies regret their choices. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Finally, Korthal spoke. What do you want from us? Nothing you're not willing to give, Rachel replied. Trade, cultural exchange, perhaps mutual defense agreements. We believe the galaxy is big enough for both our peoples to thrive, and if we refuse, then we'll respect your decision and leave, Marcus said. Though we'd prefer to stay. Your people are fascinating, and we think they'd enjoy some of our recreational activities. Korthal stared at them for another long moment, then began to laugh, a sound like grinding stone that nevertheless carried genuine mirth. You offer friendship to those who threatened you, share your secrets with potential enemies, and treat the most dangerous situations as entertainment opportunities. That's a fairly accurate summary, Rachel agreed. And yet you are the most formidable species I have ever encountered. We prefer enthusiastic, Voss said with a smile. Korthal's laughter continued, building until his entire throne room echoed with the sound. Very well, Admiral Blackwood. I accept your friendship. But I warn you, the Zentari are not known for moderation in anything we do. Perfect, Marcus said, reaching for Zara's hand. Neither are we. As the two fleets began the delicate dance of new alliance, Rachel couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best way to make a friend was to show them exactly why they didn't want you as an enemy. The Madness Protocol, Part 5. New Alliances 6 months after first contact. The gardens of New Geneva Station bloomed with flowers from a dozen worlds. President Diana Wells stood on the observation deck, watching as human and Zentari children played together in the artificial gravity fields below. The sight never failed to amaze her. Two species that had nearly gone to war now celebrating the first joint settlement in the galaxy. Magnificent, isn't it? Grand Matriarch Zyra said, joining her at the railing. The ancient Zentari's golden scales caught the light from the station's artificial sun. Her forearms moved in the graceful gestures that had become familiar to Diana over the months of negotiations. I never imagined it would work this well, Diana admitted. When Admiral Blackwood first reported your Supreme Overlord's laughter, I thought she was joking. Corthell has not laughed so much in centuries, Zira replied with what might have been amusement. Your people have been educational. Below them, a Zentari warrior was attempting to learn human rock climbing under the patient instruction of a human teenager. The warrior's forearm should have given him an advantage, but his people's natural caution was proving to be a handicap against the sport's requirement for controlled recklessness. Dr. Cross, you're being too conservative, the teenager called. Out. You have to commit to the move. Trust your strength. Alina Cross watched from the base of the climbing wall as her partner General Kale attempted to follow the advice. Their relationship had become something of a sensation in both species. The human scientist who studied dangerous creatures had found her perfect match in the Zentari warrior who commanded dangerous soldiers. He's improving, Alina said too. Jake Phoenix, who was belaying for another mixed climbing team, last week he wouldn't even attempt the overhang sections. Fear of heights? Jake asked. His attention split between the conversation and his climbers, his wife Vera, and a young Zentari engineer named Threx. Fear of looking foolish, Alina corrected. Zentari culture doesn't traditionally embrace failure as a learning opportunity. They're learning, Vera called down from halfway up the wall. Threx here just attempted a move that should have been impossible for his body type. The Zentari engineer in question was hanging upside down from a particularly challenging section. His scales flushed with what Alina had learned was the equivalent of embarrassment and exhilaration. I am beginning to understand, Threx said, his voice strained with effort, why humans find this enjoyable. The moment of uncertainty, ... Makes success more meaningful. Exactly, Vera laughed. And failure just means you get to try again. At the other end of the garden, Captain Marcus Reed and Lieutenant Zara Quinn were overseeing the construction of a new recreational facility. Their wedding 3 months ago had been the first formal union between human and Zentari cultures, with Ambassador Kira Voss officiating in a ceremony that had required creating entirely new diplomatic protocols. The zero-gravity dance studio is almost complete, Zara reported, consulting her tablet. The Zentari architects were skeptical about humans wanting to dance in weightlessness, but they're curious to see how it works. Wait until they see what we've planned for the grand opening, Marcus replied, pulling up the designs for their latest project. Orbital ballroom dancing is going to revolutionize their concept of formal entertainment. Assuming we don't accidentally create a diplomatic incident, Zara said with the fond exasperation of someone who'd learned to love her husband's enthusiasm for the impossible. When have we ever created a diplomatic incident? Marcus asked, innocently. Last week you convinced War Chief Gorvak to try bungee jumping, and he loved it. He's organizing a tournament for his entire unit. After he stopped screaming, Zara pointed out. That was joy screaming. Totally different. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Professor Jocks Winters, who looked slightly overwhelmed but deeply satisfied. The cultural attach had become something of a celebrity among the Zentari, who were fascinated by his encyclopedic knowledge of human customs and his patient explanations of their more incomprehensible behaviors. President Wells, he said, Slightly out of breath, I need to inform you that the Zentari Council has formally requested access to our complete library of recreational activities. All of them? Diana asked, raising an eyebrow. All of them. They're particularly interested in something called extreme ironing and want to know if we can teach them to surf solar flares. Diana exchanged glances with Zyra, who had begun to make the subtle clicking sounds that indicated Zentari amusement. Your people, Zyra said, have infected mine with madness. They now seek danger for the sake of experience. Is that a problem? Diana asked. The contrary, it is the most remarkable transformation I have witnessed in my lifetime. For millennia, we have ruled through fear, fear of death, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. But your humans have shown us that these fears can be transformed into excitement. At that moment, Commander Jake Phoenix jogged up to join them, slightly winded from his run around the station's outer ring. President Wells, we have a situation. What kind of situation? Diana asked, immediately alert. The good kind, Jake grinned. The Zentari have officially invited us to establish a permanent colony in their space. They want to learn what they call the Madness Protocol, our approach to turning obstacles into opportunities. And the Supreme Overlord approved this? Approved it? He's demanding we build the colony on the most dangerous planet in their territory. Something about wanting to see if humans can make a death world habitable. Can we? Diana asked. Probably, Jake replied cheerfully. Vera's already drawing up terraforming plans. As if summoned by her name, Vera appeared at the garden entrance, her face flushed with excitement and her hair slightly disheveled from her climbing session. Diana, you need to see this, she said, producing a holographic projector. The planet, Korthal, selected for our colony. The display showed a world that looked like something out of humanity's worst nightmares. Active volcanoes, toxic storms, predators the size of starships, and gravitational anomalies that defied explanation.